This episode of The Unstarving Musician is sponsored by Liner Notes. Learn from the hundreds of musicians and industry pros I've spoken with for The Unstarving Musician on topics such as marketing, songwriting, touring, sync licensing, and much more. Sign up for Liner Notes. Liner Notes is an email newsletter from yours truly in which I share some of the best knowledge gems garnered from the many conversations featured on The Unstarving Musician. You'll also be privy to the latest podcast episodes and Liner Notes subscriber exclusives. Sign up at unstarvingmusician.com. It's free and you can unsubscribe at any time. This is The Unstarving Musician. I'm Rabanzo. This is my podcast. It features conversations with independent music artists and industry professionals with occasional special topic episodes featuring yours truly. A glimpse into the minds of my varied guests, all intended to help independent music artists better understand the marketing, business, and creative processes that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Welcome to another episode, and thank you for letting me into your earbuds or on your car speakers, your Sonos, your Amazon thingy. What's she called? Alexa. That's it, Alexa. How are you doing? What are you wearing? Right? Every time. I'm still curious. It is great to be here with you. I survived a mini tour with the stylistically pure Chicago bluesman Johnny Bergen. It was a blast. There's a wee bit of video on my socials if you're interested, and I will be posting more soon. And I believe Thanksgiving will have passed before the next episode. So for those of you celebrating that American holiday, happy Thanksgiving. Happy holidays to you all. I love and appreciate you. By the way, if you would like to support The Unstarving Musician, visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor. We have a newish tip jar there. Super easy. Click tip done. Or you can explore the many other ways of offering your support on that same page. Your support equals love. So thank you. I know the world feels a little crazy right now, but hang in there. Be kind to each other. Remember you are loved. You are making a beautiful dent in the universe. Let's keep those less fortunate in our hearts and do what we can to support them. My guest for this episode is Andy McCluskey. He is a founding member and lead vocalist of OMD, also known as Orchestral, Manoeuvres in the Dark. His band has sold over 40 million records worldwide. They are electronic synth pioneers and one of Britain's beloved pop groups. OMD they destroyed the United States with their 1986 hit If You Leave from the Pretty in Pink soundtrack, although I'm pretty sure I was introduced to them before that. In fact, I know I was in one of the early bands I played in when I was living in Texas, of all places. They have also achieved, OMD, they have also achieved 12 top 20 hits on the UK singles chart, as well as 3 top 20 hits on the US Billboard Hot 100. Following the celebration of their 40th anniversary last year, 2022, OMD returned with their first new studio album since their 2017 release, The Punishment of Luxury. It's a new record entitled Bauhaus Staircase. The new album dropped on October 27th of this year, 2023. For those of you listening in the future, of course you'll be listening in the future. I'm pre-recording this. The press release says Bauhaus Staircase is regarded as OMD's most explicitly political record, although I gather from our conversation art and politics have always been at the forefront of their songwriting themes, but yes, it's got some overtly political themes on it, which I think you'll enjoy. Like many artists, Andy rediscovered his creativity thanks to the boredom of the pandemic lockdown. We talk about this, because of that boredom, Bauhaus Staircase was born. So we talk about this, plus their new album, Bauhaus Staircase, their stunning new music videos, memories of the first OMD gig, art, politics, of course, their participation in the forthcoming Dark Waves Festival, Liverpool FC, and the longevity and health of Andy's amazing voice. Such a sweet guy and such a fun conversation. It went too fast, I can say that, but what can we do? He's very busy with interviews, concerts, various media projects, and all kinds of things. Successful guy. It's amazing. I'm so happy for them. Find the new album and all things OMD at omd.uk.com. Here is me speaking with Andy McCluskey of OMD.
Hello there.
Hey, Andy, how are you?
I'm good. Is my audio okay for you?
Yeah, sounds pretty good, man. Thanks for
Great.
that.
Okay. I forgot to bring my headset with me to Germany, so I'm just on the mic on my laptop. But as long as it's good enough for you, that's great.
Oh, I'm lucky then. Usually I'm like, oh, please don't do that.
hmm
Very good. So you're in Germany. What's going on there? Are you you have some gig or what's going on?
We are recording a New Year's Eve TV show for
Nice.
national German TV. So it's yeah, 6 hours a day of waiting around to play three songs. But there you go. That's TV for you. Hurry up and wait.
Well, I hope I can somehow see that on YouTube. That'd be fun. So, yeah,
hmm
I thought you were going to. I had in my head you were going to be in England today. Where do you live these days?
I still live on Merseyside. In fact, from the bottom of my garden, I can look down the hill and see this gigantic pub about 3 miles away that I grew up in the shadow of, so I can literally see where I came from.
Ah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Is that where you were actually born as well?
Yeah, whenever we talk to people internationally, we just say Liverpool is the nearest city to us. But I'm actually from the other side of the river, which was a different county, and yeah, I was born in a place called the Wirral Peninsula, which is a kind of schizophrenic peninsula sandwiched between leafy North Wales and industrial Liverpool.
Wow, wow. Clearly the bad side of the river.
Well, no, actually, the posh side of the river, but that's the problem. That's the problem. No
Hey,
Liverpool street credentials.
hey, congratulations on Bauhaus Staircase. I know it was just released, I guess, last month. 12 songs. First album in 6 years. How does that feel?
It's been quite a remarkable recent sensation, actually. Paul and I have been joking that we seem to have become victims of releasing a very well-received album. The last few months have just been nuts. It's been like it was in the early days when we were kids, and we just seem to be here, there, and everywhere. But it's a nice problem to have because people are saying such really amazing things about the album.
Well, that makes me happy to hear. And I had gathered as much from listening to a couple of interviews that you've done somewhat recently. I checked it out myself, and I'll just throw in a lot of great songs, but where we started, particularly upon the first listen of the album, kind of got me.
Well, thank you. That's one of there are three songs on there that I specifically wrote for people that I love and care about during COVID,
Hmm.
and because it wasn't a great time, and I kind of basically I was writing musical hugs to people I cared about, and then of course when it came time to making an album, I kind of had to get in contact with them and say, that song I gave you because I love you, can I have it back for our album? And they all fortunately said yes, but on the understanding that there was an anonymity involved.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's a great tune, and
Well, I think
uh,
you can tell it was written about somebody that I truly care about. So you're obviously getting that feeling from it.
well, I'll confess to you, I am shamefully not lyrics are not the first thing I listen to. It's like the melody that and just certain sonic aspects of music that catch me for a long time before I really start paying a lot of attention to the lyrics. But every time I have
Okay.
a conversation kind of resembling this one, I'm like, great, it gives me something now to go back and listen to with different ears and
Mhm.
kind of think about what you just said. So that's wonderful.
It's got a nice and for once solo, basically Moog solo in it, and it's just so many of our synths are usually multi-tracked to get a kind of wider harmonic resonance, but that's a single synth, which is a rarity for us these days.
Ah, see, another little gem to notice when I listen to it then. Um, Perhaps some of the big success, other than how great the album sounds, has been on these amazing videos you guys are making. I wanted to ask you about one of them in particular, and I still need to kind of rewatch some of them, but I wanted to ask you to elaborate on the conceptualization and creation of the Slow Train video, another great song, by the way, and then maybe you can talk about your growing video budget for fun.
Listen, we were absolutely blessed that we put out a thing onto a video commissioning platform, and we got 56 replies.
Nice.
Most of which were, this is for Bauhaus Staircase, the first release. Most of them were mood boards and storylines. But these guys in Hull, in North Yorkshire, in England, spent the entire weekend working non-stop to create the first 30 seconds of the Bauhaus Staircase video. So we did not need a storyboard nor a mood board. We just saw the video and we just went, hell, done, sold. They've got the job. Turns out they're massive OMD fans, have been for decades, and they couldn't wait to work with us. They knocked that one out of the park, and then because they'd been through the same kind of creative impasse that we'd been in lockdown, they just said, listen, we've got a whole bunch of stuff here that's just waiting for a home. Would you be interested? And I was like a kid in a candy shop. I was like, hell, let me see it. And we were not intending to actually put Slow Train in the release schedule prior to the album. But when I saw some of the stuff they had, I went, can I have the shiny Android and the astronaut for Slow Train? And then, of course, I had to go and persuade Paul and our manager and the label, one, to change the release schedule, and two, to start increasing the video budget. But it was just, I have to say that Andy Whitehurst from Cine 1080, the company, I literally just said, if you would let us have that, I think that would work well on Slow Train. The next day I woke up at 8:30, and there was a file that had been sent at 3 a.m, and he'd just done a rough edit and gone, here, what do you think? I went, sold. So yeah, so our video budget now is 350% increased on original plan and counting. But you know what? The fact that you are noticing the videos proves that it's money well spent. We are absolutely in love with the visuals they're generating for us.
Oh yeah, I think they're amazing. I think I've seen. Tell me if I'm wrong, but are there at least 3 for the album so far?
There's 4.
Okay.
There's Bauhaus Staircase, which is the red, black, and grey one. Then it was Slow Train with the astronaut and the android.
Mm-hmm.
Then Varushka, the film noir one,
mm-hmm.
and now Anthropocene. So it's and there will be more.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited to go rewatch them. I don't think I've seen all 4. I feel like I've seen 3, but yeah, they're very cool. So money well spent, and hopefully it doesn't carve out too much from your tour budget or wherever they're going to squeeze you for that.
It's basically these days, touring has got a bit squeezed actually since we've come out of COVID. All the costs seem to have skyrocketed, so the profit and loss is a little tighter than it would have naturally been expected to be. But we will be absorbing the cost of these videos in our tour budget, one way or another.
By the way, what was the video commissioning platform that you guys put a solicitation out to?
Oh, do you know, I can never remember the name. I just it's 2 words. It's like video commerce or video exchange or so. Creative. I think it's creative something or other. Creative commerce or creative communication. I'll have to find. If you want, I'll pass that information on to the people who do our press, because I'll be honest with you. When it was suggested to me, I thought, oh God, we're just going to get all kinds of shit off this, aren't we? Where are we going to find a good video on this general platform? And of course, we hit the mother lode when we met the guys from Cine 1080. So it's proved to be an incredibly amazing place for us to go looking. I will try and get that information and get it sent on to you after the interview. I apologize for not remembering.
Yeah, I'd love that. I think some listeners and readers of the show notes might appreciate it. But if you think of it, that'd be great.
Okay.
So I was reading about some of the history of the band. I can't believe everything you garner off the internet, but here's one thing I gathered. You can correct me if it's not right, but so 18 hit singles, more or less, and it made me want to ask, and you say you're living nearby, I think, but what are your memories of like the first gig was it Eric's, like 45 years ago? Sorry, I said that out loud, but that's how I feel when people talk about how long I've been playing, but what are your memories of all that, and how does it feel now?
Well, I mean, it does. I mean, obviously, we've talked about it over and over again, but it still feels like somebody else's life on a different time. I mean, that was more than 2/3 of my life ago. I was 19. I'm now 64, and I think Paul was 18. we just dared ourselves to do a gig. You know, Paul and I had been writing music together in the back room of his mum's house on a Saturday afternoon since he was 15 and I was 16. In fact, actually, at that time, the first thing we ever wrote that was an actual song was Electricity, because Paul finally got himself an electric organ and an old electric piano, and we wrote Electricity. Um, we just dared ourselves in the end to go on stage and do it our way. We'd been in bands with friends, but you know, they played drum kits and lead guitars and things, and we kind of felt we were compromising, but we didn't think anybody wanted to hear our particular minimal way of doing music. And we just finally dared to go on do one gig, and much to our surprise, it kind of escalated and rolled into a career, which was never our desire nor intention. But here we are.
Yeah, and you said that was just the two of you at the time, you and Paul, when you did that one.
Yeah, because basically our friends didn't want to play that music with us. They were all to like Genesis and the Eagles and Pink Floyd, and they just didn't get what we were into. So we borrowed a tape recorder off another friend to be the rest of the band. I mean, we used to joke once we became successful that had Lennon and McCartney had a tape recorder, Harrison and Ringo Starr wouldn't have been in the Beatles. But it was just it was just practical needs must. You know, there was only two of us, so we needed a tape recorder, and yeah, we were very, very lucky actually. My entire generation from Merseyside were lucky that we had a club called Eric's, because it was a real kind of, if you build it, they will come venue.
Mm-hmm.
It's often called a punk club, but it wasn't. It was a venue, and it was adopted by all of the kind of local misfits and weirdos and outcasts and art freaks. And that's why Eric's Club never really had a punk band. All of the bands there were kind of weirdly named art school bands. I mean, to give you an idea of all of the bands who who played their first gig in Eric's, we only exist because of Eric's. We created ourselves to play their Thursday night open mic night. Echo and the Bunnymen, Teardrop Explodes, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Dead or Alive, Flock of Seagulls, China Crisis, The Mighty War. It goes on and on. All of us came out of Eric's within the same period of time.
Wow, legendary indeed. It seems to me, in looking over the history of the band, that the two of you have played as a duo and also as, I guess, more of a band, at least with like a drummer. Maybe some cases not. Is your current tour with kind of a band, or is it the two of you, or does it depend on where you're playing?
Once we released our first album in February 1980, we decided that we wanted more hands on stage, and we became a four-piece band. And throughout most of the 80s, we were a four-piece. We were Malcolm Holmes on drums, who was an old school friend. He'd been in kind of proggy rock school bands the way we were teenagers. And Martin Cooper, who went to school with Paul, who was a very gifted all-round musician. Martin is still in the band. Malcolm, unfortunately, had to stop playing with us because he had a cardiac arrest in Toronto in 2013. He's still alive, but boy, it was very well. He flatlined for 3.5 minutes, which was scary. So he's been replaced on drums by Stuart Kershaw, who was in the band in the 90s and co-wrote the Sugar Tax album with me. So we're still a family unit. The four of us have basically been together for quite a long time, and that's who you see when we play live normally.
I like it. Is that largely a visual thing for you guys, having a drummer? I'm a drummer, so, and I think to myself,
I can tell from your hold shot there on Zoom with your sticks and your skin behind you.
Right.
It's a good. Listen, I want to say, you will like this, right? When Malcolm came around, he didn't remember anything after passing out in the corridor outside the gig in Toronto. We went in to see him in the hospital the next day, and he said he was doing okay, just hurt where they'd been after they defibbed him. They'd been doing the pump in his heart.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor comes in and says, "Oh, we're so glad you're here, because of course you know the patient and we don't know him." The paramedics said that his heart stopped for over 3.5 minutes. Now, if your heart stops for 3 minutes, it can cause brain damage.
Sure.
And before anybody could say anything, Malcolm, our drummer, says, "Well, I'm a drummer. How can you tell?"
That's
So we
great.
just went, fucking discharge him. He's fine. Make him go home. We were like, you were fucking dead yesterday. Don't make jokes about it.
Wow, poor guy. Glad he made it through that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, the same question. Is it kind of a visual thing, or is there really something about kind of having that family unit, as you say, on stage with you that makes it more fun, or just sonically better?
It's much easier with four of us on stage to do all the things we want to do, and we still have to revert to having certain things sequenced on Pro Tools.
Hmm.
Our drum kit seems to have become more and more hybrid now. I mean, Stuart has to do so much practice because he has to, different. I mean, there's a song called Anthropocene,
Right.
which has got about five different backbeat sounds that he's got to have to program onto different trigger bars or pads. But one thing that I've always found is that front house sound men always insist. They said you can have. They said we prefer you to have electric cymbals because we don't want overheads with all that splash. Toms are fine. That's good. No more tom mics making a mess. But they said we insist on a real kick drum and a real snare drum and a real floor tom because when you want impact, you need to actually move air. And that's that they insist on that. So it's a hybrid kit. It's a real hat, real snare, real kick, real floor tom, and then all the rest is electronic. So it's the sound is much cleaner on stage because you're minus about 6 to 10 extra mics on the kit.
Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting. Cool. Tell me about your interest in, well, you've always written, it sounds like, or have much of your career theme around themes of politics and art and kind of celebrating the power of art, I guess, these days. But tell me about your interest in art and maybe secondarily politics. I know you're probably passionate about both.
Yeah, I mean, we believe in writing songs that are about important things. So, the three most important things in the world are sex, art, and politics, and we do at least two of them most of the time in music. Art. I'm the art geek in the band. Paul is electronics geek, and I'm the art geek, and we can. That's how we dovetail together. We're very different to each other, but it works when we fit together. Um, I've always taken inspiration from art, and certainly recently, I seem to have found a lot of inspiration from art. So, I mean, our previous album 6 years ago was entitled Punishment of Luxury, which was a title I appropriated from a painting that's been hanging for as long as I can remember in the Walker Art Gallery in Liverpool. Obviously, this new album, Bauhaus Staircase, takes its title from an Oscar Schlemmer painting. It's not a history lesson. I'm kind of using it as a metaphor that basically using Bauhaus Staircase as a metaphor to kind of tell the world about the importance of art. I mean, the Nazis shut the Bauhaus down because totalitarian regimes don't believe in art. But I think we discovered during the lockdown that we need medicine and we need to feed our stomachs. But if you don't feed your soul, life is a much grayer, miserable place. And when we couldn't go out to see music live and concerts live and plays and ballet and dance and art galleries, it was, it just made the pandemic all the more painful. And I don't know what it was like in the States, but I mean, our government in the UK, they funded everybody with furlough payments, but not people in the creative arts and not the tech staff that supported them. So it was as though the government was saying to us, your jobs, your creativity, your passion is of no value to us or the wider community. And I really, really didn't like that. So this album title song is really me responding to that, saying, we all need art and passion.
Yeah, I gathered this about the UK government taking that stance from another artist, and she even went as far as to say they basically told us we need to retrain, and of course that's kind of heartbreaking to hear, and she hasn't.
No,
She's,
well, no, there was a poster campaign that had a dancer, and it was a picture of it, and said, today she's a ballerina, but next year she could be an IT specialist, and it was essentially the government saying, yeah, get a real job.
man, that's fucking sad. Do you see any signs that governments or leaders are thinking about it any differently today? Like, recognizing the
No,
importance of art. Okay, that's too bad.
I think, whenever times are tight, and usually you can make an argument that the economy is tight, um, it's an easy target to say, well, we're not going to waste money on funding the arts. Those people, they're a bunch of sponges. If they can't keep their own heads above water, then why is the government spending money on it? And I think that's always been the case. I have to say, of course, I mean, if you look back to the Depression era, the American governments actually did the opposite. I mean, they funded remarkable public works of art, whether it be murals and friezes in post offices, or all kinds of public art schemes, which not only employed artists but were also uplifting for the community. So it can be done properly, but it was FDR's government did it, and that was almost 100 years ago now.
Yeah, I guess it depends on who we have trying to lead the worlds, but sad. Well, thank you for making some of the statements, subtle or otherwise, with Bauhaus Staircase, and on that front, it's important. You have, I think, a show still coming. Tell me if it's past, but I read that you're going to be performing alongside perhaps a lot of folks you consider your peers, but certainly people who would be perceived that way, including New Order, Tears for Fears, Soft Cell, the B-52s, Devo, Echo and the Bunnymen, who you mentioned earlier, Psychedelic Furs, and others at the Darker Waves Festival, which I gathered is coming up on the 18th of this month in California. Is that correct?
That's very true, yeah. I'll be heading off on Tuesday next week to fly over to try and get over my jet lag. It's a remarkable lineup, and it just goes to show that there's still an appetite for what was quite radical music over 40 years ago. Yeah, it's going to be quite a day, I think.
Is there anyone there that you're either especially looking forward to hearing, or maybe even meeting? Or do you know all these folks already?
Most of them I've met. Obviously, I know the Bunnies because they go back to Eric's. New Order, we were signed to Factory, so I knew them from the Joy Division days. The one I'm looking forward to, because I saw their first ever gig at Eric's in the late 70s, was Devo. Nice. And I've never seen them live since 1977 or 78, whenever it was. So I think it was 78. So I really want to see Devo again live.
That'll be cool. I saw them on a New Year's Eve show in Dallas, Texas, in a small venue, and it was so long ago, but I remember thinking, well, they're certainly past their heyday, but I know it's going to be cool, and it was. But yeah, here they are decades later, many decades later, still doing it.
Well, it's testimony to the fact that we live in a different cultural period now. I mean, we're in a postmodern era where, certainly, I don't know how much younger you are than I am, but I grew up in a tribal era where this was in, that was therefore out of date, and then the next thing replaced the thing that was just in last year, and there was a continual progression of timeline. We now live in a postmodern era where all popular culture is just eating its own history. Therefore, there's nothing new. However, that means there's nothing old. And if you're considered to be kind of iconic within your genre, and you've got the catalogue of music and you can still play it, then suddenly you're cool and people want to see you again.
Yeah, it's a nice thing. I actually,
hallelujah.
Yeah, I'm only a wee bit younger than you. In fact, I started in reading about OMD. I started playing music when you guys were forming, and honestly, the first proper gigs I got when I was living in Texas, it was with a group of guys that were younger than me, and they were listening to music like yours, where I had been listening to, guitar, bass, drums, rock, which I still love, but they introduced me to a lot of new music, and what we were calling then also like alternative music, all new to me, and it was great fun. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but probably just to say that I'm about pretty close to your age. Okay, so I want to squeeze this in before I look up, and we're out of time, but I had a fan question here, and hopefully it works, because I am acquainted with this person who knows your music well, and I gathered that you support Liverpool FC. Is that right?
I do.
Well, okay. So she immediately zoned in on that, and she wanted to ask a question, and I thought hopefully she'll give me something that's not related to Liverpool FC in case I read something that's not true. But so I'll pick the first one from her. But she says Liverpool currently sit third in the standings. Oh yeah, and by the way, she said this one was going to make me sound smart, but don't believe it. Uh, 2 behind Spurs and 3 behind Man City. What are their chances of finishing top of the league, in your opinion?
I think that they're greatly improved than last year. We've had to have a complete rebuild of our midfield, which we should have done earlier than we did. We had a bunch of either geriatric midfielders who were made of like potato chips, who were always injured, or kids who just didn't have the experience. We now rebuilt our midfield, and it's a lot better. The reality is, tell your friend, I think it's hard to see anybody beating Manchester City. They are just a steamroller, you know. They are kind of like the Patriots were in the States for a while when Brady was their quarterback. It was just, you know, repeat winners, and boringly so, you know, if you support any other team. So, I think Liverpool will probably finish in the top 3 or 4, but I can't see us getting past City unless something dramatic happens. But we're a lot better than we were last season, so I'm happy about that.
Well, there it is. You heard it here. That'll be for Beth, my friend Beth Salazar. She's going to be excited, I hope.
Thanks, Beth. Always happy to talk about my team.
She may hit you up. Because you have been doing this as long as you have and still sounding fantastic, I wanted to ask you how's your voice when you think about the time span of your career, and how does it feel to sing now versus back in the days, early days?
I seem to be quite fortunate that my voice has held up. What I have to do before we start a touring cycle is to get it warmed up, just like any other muscle. You know, I mean, our drummer Stuart tends not to play when he's not on the road, so he needs several weeks to get himself up to speed physically, and I have to do the same with my voice. The problem is that, you know, it's really loud if you sing full stage volume around the house. So my son and my housekeeper kind of get driven insane. So I tend to go out in my car and I listen to our own records really loud and sing along, which if anybody saw me and could hear what's going on inside the car, they'd think I was the worst narcissist on the planet singing along to my own songs. But I'm actually just warming my vocals up for tour. I'm 64, and at the moment, every song is still in the original key, and we'll see how long that lasts.
That doesn't surprise me to hear, listening to the new album. So good for you. You remind me of being a kid, though, riding around in the car to do this.
Well, great. You know, I mean, you know what it's like with drummers. I mean, you got to find somewhere where people can't hear you, which is very hard to do.
Yep.
I mean, I you know, one of the things that, again, without sounding like a narcissist or an egotist, one of the things I've been really enjoying the feedback on this album is people saying, "You sound young." And I said, well, I like that because maybe it's testament to the fact that I put a lot of energy and passion into these words, and I'm singing them like I care about them, which sounds young, rather than some old man going, "I'm just singing a song because I need a new album, but I really don't give a fuck."
You do.
So maybe that's it.
I agree. When I started listening, I'm like, yeah, it's like there's no change, just like other than maybe technologically from a sonic perspective, but yeah, you sound as young as a daisy.
Well, thank you very much. I'll take that as a compliment. Well, listen, I've really enjoyed talking with you, and we will be over to the States next fall, so hopefully we'll get to see us down in... Are you still in Texas, yeah?
No, I'm actually living in Querétaro, Mexico. Been here for about a year and a half with my wife.
Oh, okay.
She's not Mexican, though. I am.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I mean, this is another thing. I've done a lot of Mexican interviews the last few weeks, and I've been promising them we will come as well because we're very well received in Mexico. So hopefully catch you next fall.
Yeah, I gather that Querétaro is actually a city that seems to be burgeoning with music talent these days. So hopefully you'll make it here. Thank you so much for spending time with me, Andy. I look forward to listening to more of the music and watching what you guys are doing in the coming months. And have a fantastic TV thing that you're doing.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Lovely to talk to you. Take care. Bye.
Take care, buddy. This episode was powered by Podcast Startup. If you feel you need a little help with that podcast you're contemplating, Podcast Startup may be just the thing for you. Podcast Startup is a program designed for new podcasters. Did you know that most podcasts don't make it past their first few episodes? That's right. They start, they stall, and then they die. Sustaining a podcast ain't easy. It's commitment. A lack of planning and misaligned expectations are a recipe for fast burnout and fade out for podcasters. This is exactly the kind of thing that Podcast Startup was designed to help you with. If you're intrigued, if you want to start a podcast the right way, go to unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup to learn more and to receive free podcast startup tips from yours truly. Thank you for listening. You can leave us feedback, questions, comments, complaints at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. If you enjoyed this podcast, please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. If you love this podcast, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the many ways of showing your love and support. Your support does indeed equal love. The series music you heard in this episode is New Gods Part 2 by yours truly. Find links for all the places to hear the full version with vocals by yours truly at rabonzo.com. If you do not yet have a website for your music, check out Bandzoogle. It was created to help musicians and bands build their website and manage direct-to-fan marketing and sales. Bandzoogle has amazing design options, a commission-free store to sell music, merch, tickets, and more, plus tools that can capture detailed fan data for you. Try it at bandzoogle.com. Use the promo code RABONZO, that's ROBONZO, to get 15% off your first year. Find links for all the people and things talked about in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com. Peace, love, and a whole lot of gratitude.